The first time foreign boots touched Japanese soil, the samurai discovered a terrifying truth. Tradition can get you killed.
80 samurai, 80 real men, standing on a beach, watching the horizon turn dark as the sails of 20,000 Mongol warriors appear. Komoda Beach on the island of Tsushima is about to become a place where honor meets total destruction. The date is November 18, 1274. The samurai world, unchanged for centuries, has only 3 hours left before it is transformed forever. But this tragedy does not start with blood. It starts 7 years earlier with a letter. It is 1267. A messenger reaches Japan carrying a document sealed with the imperial mark of Kublai Khan, the most powerful ruler on earth. He is the grandson of Genghis Khan, the emperor who conquered all of China, controlled Korea, and expanded the largest empire the world had ever seen. Now he looks east, toward 4 islands the Mongols call the land of the rising sun, Japan. The letter is short and brutally direct. It says small countries have always kept friendly relations with great empires. The Mongols, having conquered China and Korea, now extend their hand to Japan. Japan must send ambassadors, pay tribute, or face punishment. This is not an invitation. It is a carefully written threat. The Kamakura shogunate, Japan's military government, reads the letter and discusses it. Then they do something no other kingdom under Mongol pressure has ever done, something that makes no diplomatic or military sense. They ignore it completely. No ambassadors, no tribute, not even a polite reply. Just silence. Kublai Khan is not used to being ignored, so he sends another letter, then another, and another. For 6 years, Mongol messengers crossed the Sea of Japan with the same demand, each time more threatening than before. 6 years of warnings ignored, 6 years of diplomacy thrown away. For 6 years, Japan is basically telling the most powerful empire on earth, "We don't want your friendship. We don't want your trade, and we will not become your vassal." Was this brave, or was it suicidal? Because Japan has one huge weakness. Japan has never been invaded, not once. In all recorded history, no foreign army has successfully landed and conquered Japan. The samurai are strong warriors, yes, but most of their experience comes from civil wars between Japanese clans. They follow Bushido, the warrior code. They believe in one-on-one fights, personal honor, and battlefield rules. A samurai announces his name and family line before attacking. If he must die, he dies with dignity. The Mongols don't know Bushido, and they don't care. While Japan stays silent, Kublai Khan prepares something the samurai cannot imagine. In the Korean ports, especially Masan and Happo Bay, a massive invasion fleet is built. 900 ships. These ships will carry 15,000 Mongol and Chinese soldiers, plus 8,000 Korean soldiers forced to join. That is 23,000 men in total. They also bring weapons Japan has never seen, tactics Japan doesn't understand, and a disciplined army that has conquered lands from Eastern Europe to the Pacific. The Mongols do not fight for honor. They fight to win. They attack in formations, not as individuals. They use coordinated cavalry strikes, psychological warfare, and something that will change Japanese warfare forever: gunpowder weapons. Iron bombs filled with explosives are launched by catapults. When they explode, metal fragments fly in every direction. The sound is terrifying. The fear they create is devastating. Japan has no idea this exists. While the Mongols build their war machine, the samurai sharpen their katanas, train their archery, and meditate on honorable death. They don't realize that the kind of honor they believe in is about to become useless on the battlefield. In October 1274, the fleet finally sails from Korea, minus 900 ships moving east. Their target is Tsushima. Why Tsushima? Because Tsushima is the gateway to Japan. It is a small island between Korea and Japan's main island of Kyushu. If Tsushima falls, the Mongols gain a forward base, a strong position to launch the final attack on mainland Japan. Tsushima has only about 80 permanent samurai, led by the military governor So Sukuni. 80 men to defend an entire island. They have families, villagers under their protection, temples, rice fields, and a way of life built over generations. And on November 18, 1274, they watch the horizon grow dark. It is not a storm. It is sails, hundreds and hundreds of sails. The Mongol fleet appears like a nightmare made real. Lookouts run to warn Sukuni. The governor climbs a cliff and stares at the sea. He tries to count the ships minus 10, 20, 50, 100, but gives up. There are too many. Sukekuni understands the numbers, 80 against thousands. The choices are clear: surrender and hope for mercy, escape to Kyushu and warn the shogunate, stay, fight, and die. This is the moral question that defines everything. What is worth more, life or honor? Sukekuni and his men know they will die. The math is certain. But if they run, Tsushima falls without resistance. The Mongols get a base without a fight. And worse, if no one fights, Kyushu may not understand how huge this threat is. They may think it's only pirates, not a full invasion by the greatest empire on earth. Sukekuni makes his choice. They stay. They fight. And he sends a messenger by small boat to Kyushu with a warning that will take days to arrive, but will be impossible to ignore. Japan is under attack, and the enemy is unstoppable. The Mongols land on Komoda Beach. The first boats reach the sand. Warriors jump into the water and rush forward. And this is where the samurai truly understand the horror. These are not individual fighters looking for honorable duels. They are a military machine. They move in formation, shields in front, archers behind, cavalry on the sides. One Tsushima warrior, Taizaki Suinaga, rides to the front. He shouts his name and lineage, expecting a duel, expecting a warrior to answer him. Instead, he is met by a rain of arrows. The Mongols don't respond. They don't pause. They fire together in coordinated volleys. The sky darkens with arrows. Suinaga is hit almost at once. One in the shoulder, one in the thigh, and one strikes his horse. The horse collapses. He falls onto the sand. He is about to die without ever fighting a single duel. But he survives. Barely. A fellow samurai, Shiraishi Mikiyasu, charges the Mongol line, trying to distract them. The Mongols answer with coordinated spear attacks. Mikiyasu falls. In those seconds, Suinaga crawls away from the worst of the fighting. He survives, and becomes one of the few witnesses to what happens next. The 80 samurai are destroyed step by step. This is not a traditional battle. It is a controlled military operation against warriors who don't realize they are fighting a completely different kind of war. The Mongols fight as units. When one samurai charges, 10 Mongols surround him and strike from multiple sides. No duels, no honorable challenges. Only brutal efficiency. Then the samurai hear something they have never heard in their lives. A sharp whistle through the air, then a massive explosion. Gunpowder bombs. Iron spheres as large as a human head fly from Mongol catapults. They crash into the ground and explode with terrifying force. Fire bursts out. Metal shards tear through men and horses. Some samurai have never even heard an explosion before. They think it is divine thunder. But it is not divine. It is technology. It is the gap between an empire that has fought endless wars across continents and an island nation that has mostly fought itself. Sukekuni watches his men fall. The Mongol lines advance like an unstoppable tide. Samurai tradition says that when defeat is certain, a warrior can die in battle or take his own life through seppuku to avoid capture. Sukekuni chooses neither. He charges straight into the center of the Mongol formation. His remaining men follow him. 23 samurai make a final desperate charge. War cries, katanas raised, slamming into shields and spears. None survive. The Battle of Komoda lasts less than 3 hours. All 80 samurai are dead. The Mongols lose some men, but not many, maybe around 100, maybe less. The victory is so complete that they barely consider it a real battle. To them, it was only a small opening clash. Now they control the beach. They unload the rest of their army. And for the first time in recorded history, 20,000 Mongol warriors step onto Japanese soil. The true invasion of Tsushima begins. The Mongols move quickly. They split their forces with precision. One group marches inland to search villages and temples. Another secures the coast. A third builds defensive fortifications. Because this is the Mongol strategy. They don't just invade, they conquer, and then build permanent control. The people of Tsushima hear war drums in the hills. They see smoke rising from enemy camps. They know the 80 samurai are not coming back. Some families run into forests and mountain caves. Others try to escape by boat to Kyushu. Many fail. Mongol patrols control the water and capture those trying to flee. And now the Mongols reveal their calculated cruelty. They do not only defeat armies, they use psychological warfare, methods they perfected over 40 years of conquest. The idea is simple: make the next target surrender before you even arrive. How? By making sure survivors spread horror stories so terrifying that no one dares to resist. The Mongols take prisoners, hundreds of civilians, and use terror as a message. Captives are tied up and displayed as warnings. Imagine being on the next island and seeing the Mongol fleet approaching, while also seeing proof of what happened to those who resisted. That is the message. This will happen to you if you fight. Some villages still try to resist. They fight desperately. They die. No glory. No heroic songs. Only the harsh reality of uneven war. But something important happens. Something the Mongols did not fully plan for. Before Tsushima collapsed, Sukekuni's messenger escaped. A rider fled in the early hours, crossed the strait to Kyushu by small boat, and raced to Dazaifu, the administrative capital. He delivered a report that sounded impossible. A huge fleet. Thousands of warriors. Bombs that explode like thunder. Tsushima has fallen. The governor of Dazaifu is shocked. An invasion? After 6 years of silence? Many officials thought Kublai Khan had forgotten Japan or was too busy controlling China. They believed the threats were empty. Now they understand the truth. The threats were real. They were a promise. After taking Tsushima in only 2 days, the Mongol fleet sails again. Next target, Iki Island, only about 50 kilometers away, closer to Kyushu. If Iki falls, the Mongols are almost at mainland Japan. Iki is larger than Tsushima, with more people and more defenders. About 120 samurai, led by the military governor Tara no Kagitaka. Kagitaka already knows what happened. The messenger told him everything: the Mongol formations, the explosive weapons, the crushing defeat. Now Kagitaka faces the same decision: stay and die, or escape and live. But unlike Sukekuni, Kagitaka has something else: time. A few days to prepare. He can build defenses, choose strong terrain, and try to make the Mongols pay a heavy price. Or he can evacuate the soldiers, families, and civilians he can carry, and save lives. Kagitaka chooses honor. He chooses to fight. He builds barricades on the beaches. He places archers on hills. He moves women and children into temples and makeshift forts inland. And he waits. November 20, 1274. The Mongol fleet appears near Iki. Kagitaka sees the same 900 ships, and something that chills him. Signs of what happened to Tsushima's defenders, shown on purpose as intimidation. The landing begins. The Mongols begin with explosive bombardment. Catapults launch bombs onto the shore. Defenders panic. Horses break loose. Then come waves of arrows, so many they form a deadly curtain in the sky. Finally, the infantry attacks. But this time, the Mongols meet organized resistance. Kagitaka divides his defenders into smaller groups. They use hills and narrow passes. They ambush from the sides. Hit and pull back, hit and pull back. For a few hours, it works. The Mongols take the beach, but inland they suffer losses. Dozens, maybe hundreds. But the Mongols have 20,000 men and time on their side. They adapt. They scout. They find the ambush points. They surround them. Slowly, step by step, They destroy every defense. 120 samurai becomes 100, then 80, then 60, then 40. Kajtaka is wounded, an arrow in his side, another in his leg, but he keeps commanding. Finally, he gathers the survivors at a wooden fort in the center of the island. It cannot hold for long, but maybe it will last until night, and some can escape. The Mongols surround the fort. They don't rush. They wait. They let fear grow. Then they fire explosive bombs again and again. The fort burns. The walls break. Kajtaka comes out with his last 20 men. He charges. This time, he doesn't shout his name. He doesn't ask for a duel. He simply fights with everything he has left. He dies after a fierce struggle. Iki falls in one day. 120 samurai are dead. Thousands of civilians are captured. 2 islands conquered. 200 warriors destroyed in less than a week. Now the Mongol fleet turns toward Kyushu, the heart of Japan. November 23, 1274. 900 ships enter Hakata Bay on northern Kyushu. It becomes the largest sea landing Japan has ever seen. 20,000 Mongols against about 3,000 samurai scattered across the region. The numbers are terrifying, but something has changed. The samurai of Kyushu had days to prepare. They heard detailed reports from survivors. They know old tactics don't work. They know individual honor fights will only get them killed. For the first time, samurai must adapt or be wiped out. They also understand what is at stake. Behind them is the whole nation. If Kyushu falls, Japan falls. There is nowhere left to run. The Mongols land. Explosions shake the beach. Arrows fill the air. Formations advance in waves, expecting an easy victory. But they meet something different. The samurai do not charge blindly. They do not shout names for personal glory. They hold positions. They wait. When the Mongols come close, the samurai counterattack in groups, trying to fight as organized units. It's not perfect, but it works better than suicidal charges. The Mongols still advance, but they pay a heavy price. Every kilometer costs lives. Night falls. The Mongols hold parts of the coast, but they have not broken deep into defended land. They set up camps and prepare to attack again at dawn. The samurai retreat to nearby hills, exhausted and wounded, but alive, and learning how to fight this enemy. Then the sky changes. Clouds turn black. A powerful wind rises from the sea. The temperature drops. The Mongols look out toward the water and sense something huge approaching. It is a storm. Not an ordinary storm. A typhoon, a Pacific hurricane, built over days in open water. On the night of November 23, 1274, it hits Hakata Bay with full force. Waves rise higher and higher, -3 meters, 5 meters, even 10 meters. The 900 Mongol ships crash into each other. Sailors cut anchor lines, trying to escape into deeper water. Too late. The wind drives them toward rocks. Waves slam them into the coast. Ships split apart. Warriors are thrown into the sea. Men trapped below decks drown as ships sink. Hundreds of vessels are destroyed in hours. On land, Mongol troops are trapped in chaos. The wind is so strong they can barely stand. Tents vanish into the dark. Fires die instantly. Rain hits like spears. And in the darkness, they hear something more frightening than the storm. Samurai attacks. Using the chaos, knowing the land, they strike like shadows. Attack, vanish, attack again. The Mongols cannot form formations. They cannot coordinate. They are soaked, blind, and terrified. Dawn comes on November 24. The storm weakens but continues. The samurai look down at Hakata Bay. The scene is horrifying. Wreckage everywhere. Broken ships, bodies in the water, ships turned upside down. Out of 900 ships, maybe only 300 can still sail, maybe fewer. Mongol troops on land are demoralized. Without ships, they are trapped. Without supplies, they will starve. Without reinforcements, they will be hunted down. The Mongol commander, Kim Bang-jong, makes a desperate call. Retreat immediately. Survivors are ordered onto whatever ships still float. They abandon gear, leave wounded behind, and give up the invasion. The fleet limps back to Korea. Of the 20,000 who landed, about 13,000 return. Around 7,000 die, mostly not in glorious combat, but in a storm. Japan watches the ships disappear. They can hardly understand it. They did not win because they were stronger. They won because of weather, luck so great it feels unreal. Or maybe something more. In temples across Kyushu, Buddhist monks and Shinto priests had been praying for protection since the invasion began. And just when it seemed Japan would fall, the storm arrived. The Japanese named that wind kamikaze, the divine wind. A national myth is born, the belief that Japan is protected by the gods, and foreign conquest will not succeed. But military leaders understand a harder question. What if the gods do not send a second miracle? Because Kublai Khan is not finished. The 1274 invasion was a test, reconnaissance. Now he knows Japan can be hurt. He knows samurai can be defeated with the right tactics and numbers. And he has years to prepare a bigger invasion. Japan celebrates but also panics. Tsushima destroyed. Iki conquered. Thousands of civilians lost. If the Mongols return with a larger force, Japan might not survive. The regent Hojo Tokimune orders total mobilization, new defenses, more samurai training, and tactics designed to counter Mongol warfare. They begin building stone walls along Hakata Bay, around 2 meters high, eventually covering long sections of the coast. The goal is simple. If the Mongols cannot land easily, their advantage becomes weaker. Thousands of workers and peasants are forced to build Japan's first major coastal defense system. Across the sea, Kublai Khan is also planning, building, preparing. Because the story is not over. It is only the beginning. And it returns to Tsushima, where it started. 80 samurai who stayed when they could have escaped. 80 men who knew they would die, but fought anyway. They did not stop the invasion. They did not defeat the Mongols. But they bought time. They sent a warning. They gave Kyushu days to prepare. Were they heroes? Or were they victims of a strict code that valued death more than survival? It depends on how you define value. If Sukakuni had fled, maybe the Mongols would have taken Tsushima without resistance, built a base, and reached Kyushu before defenses were ready. Or maybe none of it would have mattered. Maybe the storm would have come anyway. But those 80 men did not know a storm was coming. They had only one choice: run and live, or stay and die with dignity. They chose dignity, and that choice, repeated across Tsushima, Iki, and Kyushu, slowed the Mongols just enough. So what truly saved Japan? Samurai resistance, or the divine wind? The honest answer is probably both, and also neither in a perfect way. History is not clean. History is messy. It is made from human decisions, strategy, culture, and pure chance. 80 samurai against 20,000 Mongols. Impossible numbers. A predictable outcome. And yet they stood anyway. 700 years later, we still remember them, not because they won, but because they refused to run when every logical calculation told them to flee. That is the strange truth of courage. It only matters when it makes no sense on paper. And the Mongols will return with an even larger fleet, 140,000 warriors, and 4,500 ships. Once again, Japan's fate will hang between human determination and the wild power of nature. But that is a story for another time.